Good morning. I'm out here in my outdoor office, and I can guess you can tell by the traffic noise. Seems like Grand Central Station. I'd hear big trucks and vans going back and forth. Anyway, it's good to be with you again on a Wednesday morning. Last week I did what I guess will be the last of my series of Wednesday mornings reflecting on issues, questions related to Christ's second coming. I'm going to set that aside for now, because I don't want to go any deeper into it. Any deeper into that topic would mean just doing a regular, extended period of time looking at Matthew 24 and Mark 13 and Luke 21 and comparing them to 1 Thessalonians 4. And so anyway, I've decided to set that aside for now. And over the next several weeks, I'm going to be reflecting on the various Christian denominations. Not every denomination, because there are literally hundreds of them, and I'm going to only be reflecting on denominations that are within the broader Christian family. If you have particular denominations you're interested in, post them in the comments, and I'll make certain I include them. In what I say, I'll try to be generous. There are going to be things areas where I will disagree with a denominational stance, a denominational practice, and I may highlight that. But if I do, I'm in no way questioning the goodwill or good intentions of whatever church I'm talking about. And we're going to assume that if I'm talking about another denomination, that we are all within the broader Christian family. So, to begin with, I guess we'll start with the beginning. We begin with the beginning, which would mean that we'll begin with the Roman Catholic Church. For 1,500 years, if you were a Christian, you were a member of that church. Over the first 200 or 300 years of the Christian faith, the church grew from very small groups of people meeting in people's homes to an institution, if you will. I guess over 300 years, first 300 years of the church, to have an institution with something of a hierarchy. It was not overnight. So in 50 AD, 70 AD, you didn't have bishops and cardinals and popes, etc. But by the time you get to, say, the 300s, you have bishops and archbishops, and the institution of the church gradually grew. So the Roman Catholic Church can trace their origins all the way back to the Apostolic Age. According to their tradition, St. Peter was the first Bishop of Rome, and the Bishop of Rome is the Pope. So for them, the papacy goes all the way back to St. Peter. My coffee this morning, the Battleship North Carolina mug. Love my historic ships. Shout out to the good people down at the Battleship in Wilmington. So the Roman Catholic Church, as we know it now, is not the church that existed in 100 AD. It gradually grew and developed. One thing that is notable about this church is that it is the largest of the Christian denominations. There are roughly 2.6 billion Christians in the world, and about half of them are Roman Catholics. And as I guess many of you know, the Roman Catholic Church is somewhat hierarchical. You have a clear line of authority. You have a pope who is the official head of the church, and then the pope you have cardinals and archbishops and bishops. The pope has broad authority to speak for the church and to set official doctrine of the church. In terms of worship, if you were to go to a Roman Catholic church, what would it be like? Most of the time, a Catholic service is going to be, for lack of a better term, more high church than what many Protestants are used to, and that's neither good nor bad. It's a difference, and we all have things that we are more familiar with. And up until the early 1960s, the liturgy in Catholic services was all in Latin. Latin was the official language of the church, and until the early 1960s, it was all to be done in Latin. And I've read or heard that in the last few years, some churches are beginning to return back to a Latin Mass, and that is actually quite popular with young people, which is interesting. So I use the term Mass. Term Mass really has two meanings. The Mass can refer to a worship service, but Mass also refers to the Lord's Supper. So the term Mass refers to going to worship, and also refers to the Lord's Supper, or communion, or the Eucharist. Also, in terms of worship, they identify 7 practices as being sacraments. Most Protestants will name 2: baptism and communion. Our Roman Catholic friends identify 7 practices as being sacraments. And in case you're wondering, it is baptism. They count confirmation as a sacrament. They count marriage as a sacrament. They count ordination, if you're ordained into their priesthood, as being a sacrament. Confession/penance as a sacrament. Last rites as a sacrament, and of course communion. So in terms of doctrine, what are the Roman Catholics like? Like I said, historically, if you are a Christian for 1,500 years, you were a member of the Roman Catholic Church. Actually, it's not quite true, because there's the Orthodox Church that broke away in the 11th century. But it was for a long time the official church. It was the church. In the 1500s, of course, there was a Protestant Reformation, and that was in part over some corruption within the church, in part dealt with doctrinal issues, the role of works in our salvation. In general, traditionally, Catholics have emphasized works maybe in our salvation a little too much for some Protestants' tastes, but that is not to say that they believe in works righteousness. That is not the case. But historically, they have been willing to grant more of a role to works in our salvation. Officially, the Roman Catholic Church is somewhat conservative in practice, somewhat conservative in issues of sex, gender, etc. So all celibate male priesthood officially forbids gay marriage, abortion, etc. The Roman Catholic Church is a really big tent. You talk about organizations being a big tent. The Roman Catholic Church is that way. It is a very big tent. So underneath that big tent, you have everything from liberation theology, as has been practiced in South America, and liberation theology is very leftist, and some would say almost Marxist. But for everything from liberation theology in South America to worship renewal community and Taizé in France, to monastic orders, some portions are very, very conservative and traditional. There are wings of the church which are somewhat charismatic, and some that are sort of mystical. The Roman Catholic Church is a really, really big tent. In terms of my own personal feeling regarding their doctrines, I personally think they go too far in terms of venerating Mary, the mother of Jesus. That is I think they go beyond scriptural warrant. I would differ with them on the concept of purgatory. I don't think that is biblical, but that is a personal opinion. Obviously, I disagree with them on their view of the priesthood, since I'm happily married, and would differ with them on priests being limited to men. The Roman Catholic Church does tend to be a pretty traditional, and their official doctrines tend to be pretty traditional in terms of the core tenets of the faith. And I guess that should be understandable, because if you trace their lineage back, and the early church fathers and most of the great thinkers from within the church have come from this broader family tree. So if you trace the lineage back, and you have Thomas Aquinas or Anselm, you go back farther and you get to St. Augustine, and then you go back beyond that and you have Athanasius and Irenaeus and on, and they are all within this family tree. So the Roman Catholic Church, if you want to read like a good defense of the virgin birth, or a good defense of the incarnation, Christ being the incarnation of the Word, you can find it from Roman Catholic sources, even though I might disagree with them on some practices. One more thing that I want to mention, of course, the Roman Catholic Church, in terms of baptism, will normally baptizes infants. That's something I should have mentioned earlier. So that is the Roman Catholic Church in a 14-minute nutshell. There's volumes and volumes more, but that's sort of who they are in a nutshell. The largest of the Christian bodies, roughly half of all the Christians in the world, belong to the Roman Catholic Church. And with that, I will see y'all next week, and I'm not certain who I'll talk about next week. Probably the Eastern Orthodox Church. So anyway, I'll see you then. And like I said, if you have particular denominations you're interested in, list them in the comments and I'll make certain to refer to them. Have a great day.